Hello, in this video we'll talk about interactive while loops. Okay, so far we saw some simple examples using while loops. These examples that we saw, most of them can be achieved in a simpler way using for loop, which we are going to learn in the next module. However, while loop can do some stuff that for loop cannot do at all, okay, which we're going to talk about in the that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Being interactive with the user. Okay, assume that you want to let the user enter numbers of objects and you want to remember each one of these objects, okay, in the list. It's very easy. It could be done by simply repeating the loops or the while loop as many times as the number entered by the user. Here's an example, okay? So in this interactive while loop, we ask the user first to enter how many objects that you want to have in your list, okay? Before that, we created an empty list, okay? And this empty list has 0 items. And we ask the user how many items you want to have. And then we initialized a variable that will help us to get out of the loop. So if the user, for example, inputs number 5 as an example, okay, we're going to say while 0 less than 5, ask the user for the object, append this object in the list. You remember this method that we used to append to add an item to the list? So add this item entered by the user to the list, and then increase the value of I. So we can get to a point where we stop this while loop, okay? And then we're going to go back again. So 1 is less than 5, do this, and so on and so forth. So you can see over here, we did not have the condition written or hard-coded by the programmer. We determined the time of this while loop, or the number of iteration this while loop is going to do based on the input of the user. Okay, so this is one way. And then at the end, after we finish the while loop, we just printed out the list that entered by the user. Okay, so this is one of the ways that we can do a while or make a while interactive. But let's go a little bit more deeper. What if the user wants to enter like a number of objects, but at the same time, the user doesn't know how many objects ahead of time? So in the previous example, what we did actually, we know exactly how many objects that we have before we get to the while loop. But what if we didn't know exactly how many objects that we have, but we want to keep adding to the list or appending to the list, and then we will find out whenever we're done, we're going to quit. Okay, we can do that with the while loop. However, in the other loop that we're going to learn about in the for loop is going to be difficult using the for loop to do that. Okay, let's take a look at this example over here. Okay, what we're going to do over here, we created the list empty, just like we did before. Okay, and then we're going to ask the user press Y if you want to enter more objects. So if the user put Y or pressed Y, we're going to compare it. Is the value entered by the user equal to Y? And take a look over here, Y between quotation marks because it's a string. Okay, if it's true, that means the user wants to enter an object. We're going to ask the user for the object, and then we're going to append it. And take a look over here. We're going to repeat the question again. Press Y if you want to enter more lines or more objects. Okay, this is this line basically what's going to help us to make the expression at the while statement header at one point to be false. When is that going to happen? When the user inputs something not Y. Okay, if user inputs any other letter that is not Y, which is not, it's going to make this condition false. So we're going to exit the while loop and continue the rest of the program. So you can see in this example here, we don't know how many objects ahead of the while loop we have, but we kind of like we went dynamic with that. Okay, every time I add an object, I'm going to ask the user. Every time I'm going to add the object, I'm going to ask the user if the user wants to continue. Okay, remember again, this line over here, the one we asked before the while loop, it's going to be again repeated at the end of the while loop body. So in this case, we can exit the while loop. One of the common mistakes when people try to do dynamic or interactive while loops, what they do ask the user if you want to continue, yes or no, or if you want to add object, but they forget this line, which makes the while loop being infinite. And that's it about the interactive while loop. Please watch the following example in the next video.